Hello and thank you for stopping by. This is part 3 of a 3-part series on this Craftsman LT 3000 and what I had to do to get it running. First we had to take the carburetor apart, clean it, put a new gasket in it. Then we had to free up the transmission because it wouldn't go. And finally, part 3, I'm going to show you how to repair this overhead engine with a blown head gasket and how to adjust the valves on this Craftsman riding mower. So let's get started. To remove this engine cowling, you have to remove these two bolts up front. They require a number 40 torque bit or screwdriver. Then you have two bolts in the back of the engine. You need a 10mm wrench for this. You have to remove the yellow oil cap.
Get the engine cowling off. This was a number 40 torque, and this is what's underneath. This goes on top. You have 4 torque screws holding it on. Fortunate part was they miced didn't chew the wire. Usually when you get in here, this wire is all chewed up and you need a new coil. This is pretty rusted up from leaving it outside. And these fins, besides this up here, these fins all have to be cleaned, all down in here. This will blow your engine. In the beginning of every season, or if you have your machine, whether it's a lawn tractor or a push mower, set for a while, you should check it out.
To remove the head, you next have to take off this muffler. It's held on by these two bolts. You need a number 40 torque bit, a screwdriver. Then you have this valve cover that's held on by 4 bolts, number 10mm socket. You'll need a 10mm socket for that. Next, get this camera in focus. You have the carburetor. I removed the whole manifold with these by removing these 2 bolts. They're 10mm, same as the valve cover. Then you have the bolts for the head. You can see I cleaned this all up in here. And I don't take the carburetor off completely. I just leave it there. I let it hang. This is what the blown head gasket will look like. It has to be removed, and the surface all around here has to be cleaned. This piston head has to be cleaned. You don't want to get any of this carbon down in here. And you will need
some kind of cleaner. Carburetor cleaner. Brake parts cleaner, engine cleaner, and spray all up in here to clean this up. And once it's wet with the cleaner, you could use one of these pads. And this happens to be, this is a self-adhesive for power tools. You could use these pads, fine emery cloth, fine sandpaper. You just want to make sure that you don't mark up this surface right in here where the gasket goes. Keep careful not to get anything in here. I'm going to put a rag in here to keep the particles from going in. And once I'm done cleaning, I use a toothbrush just to make sure I get it all out. I'll blow it all out. And get yourself a couple of brass brushes instead of steel to clean this up over here. It's a softer material in here. And also, let's not forget the head itself. This head has to be cleaned out. You can see all the carbon. You can see the carbon on the plug. Now, I pulled this plug out and cleaned it. I knew it was burning oil. And I just ran it for a couple of minutes. I get a view of that plug. Just a couple of minutes, and it carboned right up again. So all this has to be out in here. This is where I'm going to use the wire wheel in this. Out here, the same as with the block. You don't want to scratch this up or put any scrapes in it. You'll have a problem. It won't sail properly. And with some of the old gas that I have, I'm going to put this in a bucket. I'm going to clean this all off. I have the push rods out ready. I just have this closed up because, like I said, I pulled this apart before and I just buttoned it up to keep the weather out of it. So first I'm going to clean this. I'll take this to the bench to clean. And another thing you'll want, plenty of rags and some gloves. I'm not going to show the actual cleaning of all of this, but once it's done and the gasket arrives, I'll show you how to install that gasket and torque it up.
When you have the head off and you remove the valve cover, be careful not to lose these 2 small pieces.
Okay everyone, it's getting a little windy out here now. I have the surface of this all cleaned off. I'm putting a new gasket on. I matched it up with the old gasket. These pins hold it on, these dowels. Well, another thing I didn't mention before, this is a good time to check your cylinder also to make sure that it's not scratched inside. So I'm looking good in here. Just bring this back up to keep everything out. If anything should fall in there. Now, we'll put the head on. Right. Now, if you saw my other video, these head bolts, they all snapped about over here. I was always told that you don't put anything on the head bolts when you're torquing them in. I'm going to put a little dab of this Permatex, this anti-seize. Just going to put a little bit right on this point here. This is about where the other ones all snapped. I don't know if this is going to cause a problem. If it does, well, I'll be doing another video. Like I said, I'm not going to put much on. Just a little bit on that spot. Oh. Picking up and just move the camera over. Now that I have this all over me. I'm going to speed this up. Now before I torque these down, I'm just going to snug them all up. This one bolt over here, I had the muffler bolts over here, and it wasn't letting this go in straight. I thought I had an issue here. Now, this is where you're going to need a torque wrench. I like using this model, where when you torque it down, you hit to the right torque, you set it, and it clicks. You only want to have it click once. You don't keep going back and forth clicking it. This one measures in foot-pounds. I don't know if the camera could pick that up or not. This one that I used for years is in inch-pounds. Now here's something interesting. When I went online to get the specs for this engine, it said that these head bolts should be 150 inch-pounds. Tighten them to 150 inch-pounds in the pattern that they show you, and then finish it off at 250. When I go to the chart, it tells me to torque it down to 220. I called Briggs and Stratton, and they said 220. So I'm going to hit somewhere in between. Now, if you have a torque wrench like this, you can see the inch-pounds. If you have a torque wrench like this, you have to convert the... There's a site that you could convert inch-pounds to foot-pounds. So, using this, it looks like I'm going to be at 12.499, and then I'll finish off at 20, but I'm going to go a little under 20, only because of the confusion between whether it's 250 inch-pounds or 220 inch-pounds. Now, there is a certain pattern to tightening this. Let me get this camera in. I'm going to start. It tells you the bolt on the bottom is the number one bolt to start with. Okay, snug, and here we go. That's it, one click. The next bolt, number 2, is this one up here. Snug. See, one click. Number 3 is this one. Let's see. We have 2, 6, 8, 3. Is this one down here? I'm going off a drawing that I made from what I had online. That's it. Number 3. Number 4. This one up in the corner. All right. For this pattern is to get an even tightness on this head, not to warp it. Now, I don't know if there's a specific pattern to this, but I'm just going to attach the carburetor onto the side with these bolts here. This I'm going to put a little anti-seize on, and then I'm going to put the muffler back in. The muffler, I'm definitely using the anti-seize on. These normally rust and break off in there with the heat, so if you can take care of it before it happens, you're really giving yourself a big help, or whoever's going to work on this unit after you. For now, I'm going to do this off screen, and I'll come back on when we adjust these valves. When reassembling this, put the muffler in first before the head, otherwise you won't be able to get it into this gully. If you make the mistake I did, simply pull out the 2 bolts in the front of the tractor, here and on the other side, and this pan drops out and you put the muffler in that way. If you put it in first, you save a step. Okay, now we're at adjusting these valves. First thing, you want to make sure you get these caps. One goes here, and one on the other side. Don't forget to put them back on. Matter of fact, when you take this all apart, you might want to take them off so they don't get lost, because they do fall off. Okay? Well, you have the 2 push rods. One's steel, one's aluminum. The aluminum one goes on the bottom for the intake. The steel one goes on top. When you take them out, you might want to mark them so you can put the top on the top. Spark plug is out, so it's easy to crank this. Make sure they're in there right. I'm not feeling anything. Not in. There we go. Okay, this one's in properly. The exhaust. The intake, not yet. Okay, you want to make sure that they're in. Turn the flywheel. That's the exhaust. There's the intake. Now, we want to connect them. Loosen this up. Gotta watch. I noticed as I was turning this nut back here is turning. So I gotta tighten that down. Otherwise these will loosen up without me doing. Or these will loosen up. Alright guys, I have it all together. I have those little caps underneath. The rods are moving up and down. With the spark plug out, turn the flywheel until you get it top dead center. You can see now the exhaust valve is opening. It's closing. The intake valve is opening and it's closing. Okay, that should be top dead center, just about there. Okay, it's moving. Now, according to the manual, it says to bring the piston down. Oh wait, that's bottom dead center. Okay. Up. Okay. According to the manual, it says to bring the piston down about 1/4 of an inch. I'm looking at this where it sits against the spark plug hole, and it's still coming up here. Watch, you don't want to bend anything in there. Okay. Now it's starting to go down. That's about 1/4 inch right there. I was going by the marks that are on the torque screwdriver. Now for the exhaust valve, The range goes between 0.5 to 0.7. So I'm going to put it on 5. Okay, I have to loosen this up. Make it snug. Now that's a little too tight. I can't pull it out. So we're going to loosen it up just a little bit to where it is. Keep it in this camera. To get a good view on this, I have to have the camera in my way. Okay, that's a little too loose. That's just right there. Now we got to tighten it up. To tighten it up, you need a torque screwdriver, a torque bit. This is what will tighten it, and you want to hold it so it doesn't move out of. Oh, the spec you just put it. Now you just put it in, and it just moved. Okay, we're good. Oh, maybe a little tighter. Okay. The camera's right in the way. So I'm tightening this. So this is what tightens it and locks it in. This is what locks it in. This nut tightens it. Had it on 0.05. It's a little loose. Now, if it hits the 6 mark, if the 6 is snug, I'll be okay with that. It's the 6. Six has a little bit of a drag. Might have moved a little too much when I was tightening it up. And here's the 7. Here's the 7. Okay, I can't get the 7 in. So that's a little tight. Six. And here's the 5. Okay, so 5's a little loose. I'm going to leave this alone now. Now, the intake goes between 0.03, 0.003 and 0.05. That's loose. Tighten it up. That's really snug, okay. Wrench, hold it. This is just tightening it up, and this is holding it from going either way, tight or loose. Oh, that's way too loose. There's that. 0.03 to 0.05, okay. Let's see. Okay. This is right where it should be. Yeah. Now we have to put the valve cover back on. Some of these require a beaded gasket maker. This one has a gasket, and this gasket's in good shape. When you put it back on, you want the engine specs on top. You want this all cleaned off, clean surfaces. Not as critical as the head gasket, but again, you want to tighten these in a little bit of a pattern. You want to snug them down and not warp it. I believe the torque on here is something like 6 inch-pounds. So you can use a torque wrench or just a little common sense. You feel it a little snug, give it maybe another 1/8 of a turn, a 1/4 turn. Just snug that down a little bit. Come across to the other side. Alright, now we'll tighten them up. Like I said, you want to give it a little snug and maybe just a little whoop. Come to the other side, do the same thing. There really isn't any pressure to speak of on this valve cover. So just snug, and if you see a little seepage, you can always come back and just tighten it up. Just don't want to overdo it. Snap a bolt in there or strip it. Now I'm going to put that cowling or that air blower back on. Get it all buttoned up. Get it off the ramps and see if she'll start. Alright guys, let's see if she's going to start. Well guys, the next thing that has to be done, I have to change this oil. That muffler's smoking, but that could be from the oil that was leaking into it from before. I noticed black smoke came out right away. No smoke's coming out of the oil spout. I don't want to run it long because the oil that's in here is black. And as I was cleaning this up, we did have the carburetor cleaner going down into there. So I'm going to change this oil. I'm going to cut it. I'm going to mow with it once or twice, then I'm going to change the oil again. Well guys, that's a wrap. If you found this video useful, entertaining, or have any comments, please post your comments down below. Give it a like, and if you haven't done so already, consider subscribing to my channel, and not to miss any of the new videos that I upload weekly, hit that notification bell. And until next time, stay well.